Right. And we see this often on social media, that people recommend some exercises and they say that this exercise works the trapezius, the rhomboids, the lower back, the quads, and the calves, for example. Is there such a thing that an exercise will work optimally all these muscles at the same time?
No.
Right?
No. I mean, everything you look at that's a compound movement can be identified as being compromised to one or two or more of the participating muscles as compared to how those muscles could work in isolation.
Okay, another argument, some people will say, well, if I do the plank or if I do like exercises that involves many muscles, that's great for calories burning. So let's say if I'm a personal trainer and I have a client who wants to lose weight, then I will use these exercises with them. And I know that you said one time it's better to just focus on the cardio, do cardio, and then just do the muscle building, and the exercises themselves can be like the BRIG-20 can be a good calorie burning exercise.
Well, look, I mean, the bottom line is that you have to identify exactly what your goal is with each activity. So if your goal is to burn calories, and that's your priority, and that's your sole priority, and you don't care about optimizing muscular development, then go ahead and do an exercise that requires a lot of calories because it engages a bunch of muscles at the same time. Mm-hmm. But if your goal is to maximize muscular development, then you should do the exercises that do that, even though they don't burn a lot of calories or as many calories as the compound exercise might. Now, I'm a purist, meaning that, when I do something, I want to do it 100% right. So if you're a purist and you want to do things 100% right without any compromises, without any waste of time, without any wasted effort, without any compromised benefits, then you're going to do the exercise that give you maximum stimulation for each of the physique muscles. And then if your metabolism or your lifestyle or your diet, whatever you want to call it, requires more calorie burning than what you were able to achieve with the isolation exercise, with the BRIG-20, then you can do squats, body weight squats, high rep if you want. It's not going to undo the benefits that you got with the isolation exercises. It will not contribute as much muscular development benefits as the BRIG-20 did, but you can still do it. You can do it in addition to, especially if you're not doing it with weight on your shoulders, weight on your spine. If you're just doing it with body weight, it's perfectly safe. And it's a great way to get your heart and lungs working. So yes, right, you can combine these things. But what I'm talking about when I say you're better off doing these than those is the idea of putting a weight on your spine, the idea of compressing your intervertebral discs, the idea of overloading your rector spinae. And you're doing it for one thing, muscle growth. Mm-hmm. I would say you can get more muscle growth over there without loading anything on your spine. Nothing. It's foolish to load your spine to get muscular development benefits. It's a very, very indirect way of loading the target muscles. But if you want to use it without weight, you want to do a compound movement, look, a compound movement might be considered an overhead press. I would definitely discourage that all the time, unless you're just using your hands, right? But any weight on an overhead press is potentially injurious to the shoulder joint. But a squat is a perfectly natural movement. You can certainly do that, provided you use good form. You don't let your back round when you get to the bottom. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing unsafe about doing that compound movement. Parallel bar dips is a compound movement, but there's no way of doing it with just body weight without at the same time overloading the front deltoids and possibly other muscles. So that's not a good compound exercise that I would do for calorie burning. Mm-hmm. And so each exercise has to be evaluated, independently.
Individually. Yeah. The reason you said you only do the purest movement because you're aware of the 16 biomechanical factors we call the Brignolean principles. Mm-hmm. So for some people maybe don't know that there is such a thing as evaluating exercises, and that it's not really beneficial from a muscle growth point of view to do an exercise that hits many muscles at the same time. So I think education is the problem, and this information wasn't available before for those people.
Right. I mean, you know, people are often, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, but people are often simple-minded. To them, things are black and white. It's all or nothing. But life isn't all or nothing. Life is degrees of good and degrees of bad, right? I'll give you one example. Let's just say that you're going to do a torso rotation with a medicine ball. Okay, your movement is horizontal. The resistance is vertical because that ball is being pulled toward the ground. So you are not challenging the left to right movement, right? What you're challenging is the muscles that are holding the ball up, which are the shoulders and the arms. So if you were to, that's what we call alignment. That's misalignment, right? Proper alignment is that the direction of movement, your movement, anatomical motion, is precisely opposite the direction of resistance. What if it isn't precisely on it, but it's also not completely different? What if it's only 10 degrees off of precisely opposite? You get a diminished benefit commensurate with the degree of misalignment, right? It's not as bad as having a direction of resistance that's completely different than your movement. What if it's 20 degrees different? Okay, it's greater diluted, it's greater compromised, but still not as much as this one would be. So this is what we talk about is how do we evaluate exercises in a way that actually identifies the degree of compromise or the degree of, you know, efficiency, so that we can actually quantify, we can actually measure, we can actually see and understand why this exercise is either a whole lot worse than this one or just a little worse than this one.
Doc, someone in the comment section was talking about the suck factor of the squat. Can you elaborate about that?
Yeah, I did see that actually. What he was referring to is is interesting. It is completely useless from a muscle building standpoint. What he was saying was that squats suck, that squats are painful, that squats just are super difficult. And of course, what he's obviously suggesting, and I can relate to this firsthand, is that he's using a significant amount of weight and he's taking it basically as far as he can possibly take it. And that, of course, is what we were talking to about a second ago, which is this idea that it's very systemically stressful, right? So he was saying that the reason he does squats, or one of the reasons he does squats, aside from the false belief that it's actually maximally productive, is that it's kind of a badge of courage. It's kind of like looking at the lion's mouth and having the courage to kind of stick your head in the lion's mouth. He didn't say that, but that's kind of what he meant is, you know, look how courageous I am that I can actually stick my head in the lion's mouth and not be afraid that I'm going to lose my head, right? So look, I did skydiving. I jumped out of an airplane. You could argue, you know, was there a productive reason why you jumped out of an airplane? And I could say, no, it was the thrill of it. It was the thrill of it. It was, would I call it bragging rights? I don't think it would be bragging rights, but there is an excitement that comes from doing something that is very scary. Yeah. That could kill you. Yes. That most people don't have the courage to do. And that's what the way he was regarding the squat, which is bizarre, frankly. And I say that because there is damage that's created by the squat, whether you like it or not. And what you're doing is you're investing a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of cost, energy cost, and also, you know, safety cost, you know, skeletal integrity cost. You're investing that, you're compromising the skeleton safety because you want to basically tell people that you squat 315 pounds or 405 pounds or whatever it is that you can squat. And you're telling it to people who are going to think that that is truly a good way of measuring machismo or measuring, you know, total body strength. And yet it is not. It is not. I mean, Is it a good way of evaluating machismo? Look, if you played the game of chicken in a car, right, and you're driving your car at full speed against someone who's okay, and you don't flinch, is that macho or is that just stupid? Right? I mean, ironically, the person who flinches first is the smarter one, and yet he's the coward. The person who doesn't flinch and takes it until, you know, he actually crashes because the other guy, and he's more courageous but dead. Yeah. You know, that's just ridiculous, right? So we need to be sensible about this. You know, you can't be just barbarians. I mean, this whole idea that we're going to compromise not only the muscle gain we could be having, but also compromise our spine and our joint safety and everything else just because we want bragging rights. So you might remember that a number of years ago, I told Rick, I asked him, you know, would you rather have the bragging rights and not the shoulder mobility, or would you rather have the shoulder mobility now and not the bragging rights? He said, well, I'd rather have the latter, but I don't have that option.
Right. Well, just before we wrap up this episode, the BRIG-20, Doug, are they just for bodybuilders or anyone can benefit from them?
Let me be clear. The BRIG-20 movements are the most natural movements for the human body, period. How you use them depends on your goal, depends on your current situation, your age, your willingness, your drive, it depends on a lot of things. A safe movement is a safe movement for grandma at 80 years old, and also for the bodybuilder who wants to take that muscle to maximum capacity with the most weight he or she can possibly use for, 6 reps, 4 reps, etc. Right? So the only caveat to that is that some people have a pre-existing injury. So needless to say, if you're paralyzed, you can't do the BRIG-20, right? If you have, let's say a frozen shoulder that provides you essentially no limited range of motion, then any BRIG-20 exercise that involves that joint will probably not be comfortable for you. Right. Not because the movement isn't the right natural movement, but because you're compromised, right? So there are times when a person may not be able to do one of the most natural exercises that we recommend in the BRIG-20, but that's not because the exercises aren't perfect. You can, in the book and in our course, we explain very carefully what the range limits of motion are for that joint, what the direction of movement would be for that joint. We explain all of it as to why this is the most natural, even from an evolutionary standpoint. What did early humans have to use this joint for? What did they not have to use this joint for ever? So this is how and my book is endorsed by a paleoanthropologist who confirmed all of this as being correct. So we have to look at what is the most natural joints for anybody, not just for the bodybuilder or the athlete. It's for anybody.
Right. So get the BRIG-20 if you really want to make your workout beneficial, and if you want to make the most out of your time and effort in the gym. Get the BRIG-20. We're upgrading actually the BRIG-20. So right. If you get them right now, you will benefit from today's price. So we highly encourage you. You also can get the Physics of Resistance Exercise book. If you go to dougbrignole.com, you can get it signed if you want that. If you want to know more about our online program, go to smarttraining365.com. And for those who are watching us for the first time and who asked, who's this Doug Brignole? Doug Brignole is a biomechanics expert. He's an accomplished bodybuilder with over 40 years of experience in the field, right? 40 years?
40 years, 40 plus years.
40 plus years, So tremendous experience. I truly trust this man, he's amazing. So I highly recommend the program. So subscribe to our channel if you want to know what are the best exercises to use, which exercises to avoid, and share with us your questions and comments in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching Smart Training 365. Thank you very much, Doug.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll see you in the next video. Take care.